think it's Saturday, January 26th. Yes, because I know somebody's birthday tomorrow, which is the 27th. So today is going to be a little more touchy-feely kind of vlog. So if you're not into that kind of stuff, I will understand you not wanting to watch. I mean, I think a lot of people watch but don't comment, and that's fine too. I'll probably be playing with my hair a lot. My face hurts really bad, so you can see quite a bit of the sores. My pillow at night rubs against it and peels the skin off, so it's rather painful today. But I did wake up in the middle of the night rubbing it, and I really have to watch it because I rub and scratch it unconsciously, I guess, while I'm sleeping. When I'm awake, I try not to do that, though you'll see me touching it because it hurts so bad. I have a cat in the background crying. I'm not sure which cat it is, but apparently they're having an issue in life. And top of my head hurts, so when my face hurts, I get the sores on my head, which is one of the reasons I keep my head shaved so long. It's so much easier to deal with sores in your head when you don't have hair. But the long hair, so I can braid it and stuff, if you ever wondered. Anyway, so this topic is called physical loneliness. Now, I'm not talking about sex, because I wouldn't call it that. I just call it sex. Which is maybe possibly a topic all of its own. I'm not sure. And the reason it might be a topic of its own because I think that sex at different age levels has an interesting thing. You know, how we deal with those kind of things. I'm sorry, I'm having a really hard mass day, skin day, face day, all kinds of days. Some of the stuff that happens in this shoulder is starting to happen on that shoulder, so it goes through days. Anyway, so for me, physical loneliness is more about that interpersonal, vulnerable touching that you do with someone else. Now, it doesn't have to be an opposite gender kind of thing, or opposite sex, however you want to look at that. But it can be. I mean, it can be. For some people, they have a need to be with the opposite sex, opposite gender. For people like me, it can be either or when we're talking about physical loneliness. But when I'm talking about intimate physical loneliness, I like men. That's what I like. I like the men. I like them big. I like them strong. I like them tall. I like them hairy. Though I'll take all the other ones if I find you attractive. And there's a certain aspect in life for me that has always been there. Since I was small, since I was a child, I've always wanted to have those interpersonal, intimate relationships that you have with your family, which you have with your best friend, which you have with your lover, which you have with, people. Those moments in time where touch kind of becomes the only communication you have between that person. When I was small, or younger, I don't know why I say small. I think because I remember myself as a child as a very small child, like tiny person. Some of the touches that I enjoy have transitioned into coping mechanisms when I'm not feeling well. So one of them is my grandmother would brush my hair. Now I brush her hair too, but she would brush my hair. And so I will wake up in the middle of the night and I will feel this intense need to be soothed or close to the memory of my grandmother or anybody actually sometimes. And I will brush my hair. I will just, with my fingers, I will just go through my whole head. It's really funny. And brush it. And then I'll just fall back to sleep. I haven't done it in a while. So I think because it hurts my shoulder to brush my hair, to get my arm really up there. And a lot of times the way I sleep, sleeping is a way I meditate to get to a state in sleeping that is kind of the only time my body relaxes. And so the pain will be there when I'm sleeping. So I will wake up when it hurts really bad. Which is, you know, if you have a mate or someone that you sleep with, some of us, you know, don't, but I used to have people I'd sleep with. And when I say sleep, I do mean sleep, you know, cuddle up next to them and lay down next to them and feel safe and warm and cozy. I think for me, it's not so much that I'm safe and warm because my blankets do that for me. They're a huge security thing. But to feel just another person, which is why I loved sleeping with my children, to have that connection that you weren't the only person, you weren't all by yourself. Now, by nature, human beings are herd animals. Like they live in tribes, and family units are that, but even in bigger sense. So we seek out others by nature. Now there are people who are not seeking out others, but sometimes that has to do with abuse and neglect and things that have gone through our life that make us very fearful of others like ourselves. So that has happened to me. I have a very borderline personality concept of intimacy and vulnerability. So if I've known you and we're friends and we've touched on those subjects of my the things that cause me fear in life, then I'll be more apt to feel comfortable around you. For me, sex and intimacy are two different things. Not some people they're not, and in a healthy relationship they're not. I mean, there's no reason why you can't go out and have sex and just have sex to have fun. I mean, sex is fun. And then there's sex that has a higher or deeper meaning, I guess, for you. And a lot of people wrap a lot of myths around sex to generate that, and they become unhappy. I myself, as a teenager, struggled very hard to get out of those things that people wrapped up in sex. Like sex and love have to go together, you know, things like that. The same thing with you should like somebody if you want to cuddle with them. I don't think I would want to cuddle with somebody I didn't like. I might have sex with somebody I didn't like because to me sex is different than that intimacy thing. But I don't think I would want to be vulnerable with somebody I didn't like. Probably because the reason I don't like them is because they have been abusive or mean to me in some way that causes my inner feelings about myself to be on subject. And that happens for me quite a bit because people I'm attracted to are people who could care less about me. I try very hard to look for people. Not now. I don't go out of the house, so I can't look for anybody. And I don't even do online dating anymore because I'm trying to eliminate my other persona, Eliza, the me, from Grammy and Shardvixen. I kind of don't want that internet footstep out there, that online footstep. So I've been eliminating that ever so slowly. It's still out there. I mean, you can find it. It's not like I'm hiding. It's just that I'm trying to make sure that I protect myself in all things. But I used to do online dating, and I would go out and meet people that on screen seemed like we were very compatible, but when we actually sat across from each other, we're not very compatible at all. I think some of that's my fault. My mental health issues make it very hard for me to have good, solid, physical relationships with people. There's a lot of stuff wrapped up in vulnerability for me. That's just me. And then I have this problem that when commitment comes around and it becomes time to make a connection, any little thing will cause me to bail. I'm gone. Goodbye. See you. And there's lots of psychological reasons for that. Maybe I'll visit that someday. But for the physical loneliness part, it is one of the major contributive factors to my depression. I become very disconnected, which is part of, is not because of other people. I used to always think it was other people. And a lot of people who are depressed, I think, we get into that mode that it's them, not us. But the disconnect comes from within. And that's the hardest thing to acknowledge, is that disconnection that I feel around other people is generated by me. It's not generated per se by them. Now, they may not be as open, so that it's even harder to make a connection. But I am, as that saying goes, being alone in a crowd. That is me, alone in a crowd. I can be, it just be me. But that's also because of the egocentricness. I can wrap myself up and I'm all alone. So I was going with the idea that human beings by nature want to be in groups, tribes. And that's what your teenage years are all about, is finding that group, that tribe that you're part of. And when you have mental health issues, especially depression and borderline personality disorder, anxiety, COD, a lot of other ones, you have a hard time making those connections. So you tend to be alone. No matter where you're at, you're alone. So I learned to deal with being alone and being lonely, because they're two different things. You can be alone and never be lonely. And you can be with a bunch of people and feel extreme loneliness, which happens to me quite a bit. I am with a bunch of people. I might be enjoying those people, but I still feel the lack of connection with them. So I feel this immense loneliness, which is deep in the bone loneliness, which makes you less likely to want to keep going back out and hanging out with people, because you're not making those connections. So for me, it was always easier to make those one-on-one connections than it was to make a group of connections. So I struggled through life to find that one person that I would have a deep connection with. I had met a couple in my life, but circumstances and my mental health and their mental health and the unhealthiness of our relationship tend to make me move on, which is the part I have. As soon as I get comfortable and it seems like this is a great thing, I freak out and I move on. That's me. It's all on me. So a lot of my loneliness is on me. But the physical loneliness sometimes just becomes such a yearning that I just want to leave my house and walk up to the first person I see and just give them a big old fat hug. Now, the mental health part of this component is that I can't reach out to people I don't know very well. I have people walk up to me and hug me. I mean, they just hug me out of the blue. People I've known very well. People who just, hi, my name is, and they give me a hug. And that's all right. It doesn't bother me, but there's no connection there. It doesn't like, oh, this is a great hug, thank you. The physical loneliness I kind of miss the most is hand holding, which now is really hard because my hands hurt all the time. But, which is kind of another component to this, is the fibromyalgia makes touching me very painful. My kids hug on me. I bump into something. My spatial sense gets off and I bounce into walls and stuff like that. And my body hurts, the skin part, all the time. You push on it and it causes pain. There are some areas that are less painful and some that are more painful. Like the sides of my thighs are very, very painful, which is weird because I sleep on my sides a lot. But I think because I have a foam thing that cushions me, it's okay. But I feel like I'm in a rock tumbler all the time. Like air has sharp edges that poke me. But I miss that sitting someplace, like maybe watching a sunset on a bench or I've sat on cliffs and watched the sunset, or on the beach, and just sitting next to somebody. And maybe not talking about anything of any importance, or maybe not talking at all, and just kind of sitting there and, touching each other just because you're sitting close to each other. Or nuzzling into somebody, and laying your head on their chest and listening to their heartbeat. I like hands, so touching people's hands, doing like this It's really weird. I like it. It tickles when I do it myself. Which is a really interesting thing, because you can't really give yourself... I mean, it's not like masturbation. Because masturbation, you can actually give yourself some kind of relief sexually. But for physical loneliness, there really isn't anything you can do for yourself. I mean, you can't hug yourself. You can't, you can't pet yourself. I mean, the closest I can get is, like I said, brushing my hair. My mom, when I was young, used to rub my ears. You can't do them now because the sores I have go up into my ears. But she would rub the inside of my ears. It was one of the few times that her and I would be physically close. We would hold hands, but she had problems with her knuckles, so it hurt for me to hold her hands, or so she always said. My grandmother was much more touchy-feely, like I could touch her. I didn't really have physical closeness with my father, and when I did, he always made it weird. He always made it like it was a weird thing, so that ended very quickly until when I got to be about 10, 11 years old. And so when he did touch me, I'd freak out because he made it weird. Not because he made it sexually weird, he just was always in the back there, this thing that this was wrong. Little girls don't hug their daddies. That was the kind of thing in my house. The only person that was allowed to touch me was my mom. And so, but because there's a whole history there, and someday I'll talk about that history too. It's a weird history for me. So, but it adds to how I respond and how I react to people physically. There's always been that sense sometimes when I was young of a secret dirty of touching males, like having hugs and loves. But then that compounds being sexually abused by males. So, your brain gets all wrapped up in these strange little nuances. And even though you've moved past and you're healthy from that, it still leaves little weird traces that sometimes when you're with somebody, if you're not comfortable with that person, if that person does not represent a safe zone, then it's very hard to derive any pleasure being hugged, being holding hands with somebody, having somebody encapsulate you in a awe of safety. So for me, life has always been kind of a weird, hang on, sorry, eyes are leaking, kind of a weird danger zone of being able to let yourself go and trust somebody enough that they can not hurt you, not necessarily protect you, but not hurt you, to knowing that there are people that moment that you drop that shield you have around yourself, they're going to hurt you. And physical touching and affection opens the doorway for that. There's a huge amount of vulnerability that occurs with being open with people. Not just open physically, but explaining and talking about yourself and your fears. Because the moment you put them out there, then people can use them against you. And people are like that. There are people out there who go out of their way to cause you pain because it brings them power. And if you understand that, it's easier to move to that next section where you can feel comfortable and relaxed with somebody. You have to feel like that person would protect your rights as well as you protecting them. It be a safe zone. So physical loneliness for me is compounded by that whole, am I being protected? Am I safe? Will I be safe to sit next to this person and hold their hand or put my head on their shoulder or have them walk around with me and talk, or not talk, just sit and look at things and kind of have that sense of being. I miss that, but I've not had it a lot in my life, so I always miss it when it's not there. Because when I was young, it wasn't there, and I couldn't understand it, and it drove me to sex. It drove me to try to have a way to have a connection with somebody. It was only after I had my daughter that I realized that it was physical loneliness that I was having an issue. And I hugged and I loved and I kissed on her, and she was my my other body. But you miss that with someone who's your peer, your friend, There's somebody you can just sit and talk to. For me, it is more important in the long run to have a male who's my friend that I might have sex with, but who is there for that vulnerability and that need to be held or hugged or loved or just, you know, share the world with. And I don't have that. I've always been very envious of people who have relationships that are very long and they have that. Now, there's some relationships I wouldn't want, even though those people are happy in them. They don't represent that thing that's that ideal for me that encompasses that physical loneliness. All right, so that's it. It's kind of a little sad stuff, you know, but it is one of the things that affects me. Because when I'm sick, that's one of those things that I don't want to be alone when I'm sick, but I'm alone a lot when I'm sick. So I miss that physicalness of having somebody, you know, like nestle up to you and wrap you all up and hold you really, really, really tight, you know. And or another one is having somebody rub my body. It hurts. I have to tell you, massage hurts so bad. But it's also one of those hurts that feels good, you know, like when your muscles are really tight and you can get it to relax. That it's painful when it's tight and relaxed, but it feels good. But so anyway, the next vlog is Rambling 101, and whatever's on my mind at the time is what we'll talk about. I'm sorry, the top of my head is just blinding pain right now. My skin underneath my mask is just having a really hard time. What else I want to say? No, I'm thinking about making a wish list. I've seen some of those work. I don't expect anybody to buy or spend money on me. I'm just letting you know that I'm thinking about doing that along with some of the other stuff I've been working on. Everything I said I was doing, I am working on. It's just really slow. So I'll catch you all on the flip side. I'm out of here. Peace. Peace, peace, peace.